meeting than we normally have, so.
One second, I think she's going to try to reconnect.
It's okay if it stays like that. Are we muted or not? I don't think.
Okay, sorry about that. Glad I had made John host so it didn't kill everything. Okay, so I'm not sure where I was at. I was noting that to make a comment, you do need to be logged into Zoom. And with that, I will call this meeting to order. And John, can you take a quick roll call?
Yes, building official Steve Brown.
Here.
City engineer Mario Landeros.
Here.
Planning director Carrie Sponstrom.
Here.
And we have the fire chief Bill Braga and superintendent Dante Del Prete out for this meeting.
Thank you. The next item is comments from the public regarding any items not on the agenda. Fred, I know you're the applicant. Bob, Bill, and Trish, if you do wish to make a comment not on the agenda, please unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
I haven't seen an agenda. This is Bob. I haven't seen an agenda, but it's okay. I could probably follow.
Okay, great. And we only have one item, real item on the agenda, which is the Huntley Street lot line adjustment between 7451 and 7493. And before we open that item, I will ask if there's any statements of conflict of interest from the Environmental Review Committee members.
No conflict here. Yeah.
Great, and I do not have a conflict either. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the regular agenda. And can we get a brief staff report, John?
Yeah, so the item today is a lot line adjustment to request to adjust the lot line for APN 004-231-002 to give approximately 9 feet of clearance to the existing building at APN 004-231-003. Overall, the project proposes to adjust a small corner of the property line between the Mitchell and Dvorak property lines to provide the proper clearance for the garage structure on the Mitchell property. This project's been categorically exempt from the CEQA requirements pursuant to section 15305, class 5, which includes minor lot line adjustments, side yard, and setback variances, not resulting in the creation of new parcels. And that's all that I have.
Excuse me, John, this is Fred Phelps.
Yes, go ahead, Fred.
I was just wondering, I don't see you on the screen quite as of yet. I can see you all, but I don't see me.
I don't. Do you have your camera turned on?
I don't know.
It doesn't appear that your camera is turned on, but
Let
we
me
can hear you.
There we go.
Hello.
And
Okay.
I also want to note that Fred did reach out to both Mario and I after the staff report was written to provide a couple changes to, I believe, condition number 3 that we can discuss.
Okay, and John, can you outline that now?
Yes. So the specific condition is item number 3 doesn't require a deed for the adjustment parcel itself, which is a paramount. Dvorak, of course, needs to grant Mitchell the triangle piece being adjusted, thereby granting the piece conveyed, and truly that is all that's needed. Title, as the title will proceed clearly from there accordingly. Mr. Phelps is asking that the applicant shall change item number 3 to read as the applicant shall submit title reports for both properties, including acquisition deeds describing each property before any adjustment is made. The applicant shall also submit a draft deed describing the piece being adjusted along with a plat and closure calculations.
Yeah, and John, if I may chime in. Yeah, Fred contacted me last week. It was on, I believe, Thursday. And yeah, he had questions on this particular condition. And as I understood, his concern was that typically what he understands is that the conveyance document, the deed, it should only be for the portions being transferred. In this case, it's a triangular piece from, I believe it's from, correct me if I'm wrong, from Dvorak to Mitchell. And so as the condition is written, it would require that effectively a deed for the newly reconfigured lots be submitted. And that's where I understood Fred to have a concern with, because in his work for his client, he has prepared legal description with associated control work, field work for the triangular piece, and not necessarily surveyed the entire lot. So I understand that he's deemed that as a additional burden and unnecessary expense, and that's not really what's required. Do you want to comment on that, Fred?
I would just say that, yes, indeed, I concur in that the most important thing for the lot line adjustment is to have a legal description describing the piece that's being conveyed from one person to the other. And then once that conveyance gets recorded, that ends the lot line adjustment and gets title, adjusted from one piece to the other. And I think this idea sometimes where the local agency is asking for legal descriptions of the resultant pieces, that has the potential to kind of cloud the title in the future, depending upon how the surveyor writes those legal descriptions and all. I do know that land surveyors and title companies are loath to kind of change the legal descriptions in the record. So in this case, with a lot line adjustment, what happens is there's a transfer from one piece to the other piece. And then in the future, 2 years hence, 2 weeks, 5 years hence, the legal description of the property then becomes its original legal description, excepting therefrom the deed that was transferred away 2 years ago, whenever that might be. And that way it's kind of clean and crisp, and there's only one set of legals in the record. But sometimes when we do these resultant descriptions, that also is in the record. But since it isn't effectual, since it doesn't really change, it doesn't really change the fact that the triangle piece, say in this instance, got adjusted on the neighboring property. It just makes 2 other descriptions be in the record that is a grant from one person to the same person. And it's like having a grant for yourself. Anyway, it just kind of has a chance to muddle the waters, as it were. And I think where this came up was in the past, there's been some lot line adjustments where someone was going to maybe follow an arroyo or follow a fence or whatever. And there's many little pieces that get adjusted back and forth. And sometimes those are kind of a little difficult to track. And in that kind of a case, and I think a couple of years ago, where the local agency started asking for resultant descriptions to come into the record, because it helped the assessor kind of then map out this new piece, because it might have been quite complicated because of the number of parcels involved. So if anything, I might suggest that in the future, say, if a lot line adjustment has more than two pieces involved, two pieces being swapped or whatever, maybe from that point, one could then request these resultant descriptions to be. But truly, we've been doing this for, many years, just describing the piece that's being conveyed. And in my mind, it makes it a simpler and cleaner thing.
Understood, yeah. So it sounds like what I had described was the nature of our conversation, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for collaborating that. But the other comment that I was going to add to this was that in the condition that was as it was provided, it is a typical, I want to say, kind of a legacy type condition that has been applied in past lot line adjustments. I don't know the background on that, if there has been any issue or concern from previous surveyors doing these lot line adjustments. So that's asking for, as it's written, that submitting a draft deed showing the two properties in the adjusted state. It is a similar condition that I'm familiar with from another agency, and I've seen this similar type of item or condition applied. But I did want to add to comment that I'm not necessarily married to this this wording, this condition, and what seems more appropriate is following the language in the municipal code for lot line adjustments. In the municipal code, and perhaps it should have been worded as such in past times and in this case as well. But what the municipal code says is that the applicant shall submit to the city engineer for review and approval revised deeds for transfer of the property, and then thereafter record the documents and submit to the city. That is wording directly from the municipal code, and I am fine with standing by that at this point, and offer that for further discussion with the committee.
Mario and Fred, thank you for that. I do have a question about that, and then we can we'll take public comment, and then we'll do our deliberations as a committee, just as our process. If only the resultant parcel is recorded, how does that I guess we'll call it the triangle, but the portion of transfer, how does that get merged legally into the other parcel rather than being a scrap of land? Because I guess I'll just, from my experience, which is limited in Sonoma County, but pretty lengthy in a couple of other different counties, normally what happens is there's a couple of things that are done. One, the actions that the county surveyor's office or assessor's office are actually doing with the mapping is they take the one parcel, they actually give it an APN, and it may not be the same here in Sonoma County, but this is how they did it in Marin and up in Oregon where I've worked before. They would take that, give that an APN, and then they would, as a separate action from their mapping, merge that into, in this case, it would be the Mitchell's property, or I believe they sold it, so that parcel, and then create two more APNs for the two resultant parcels, and those two resultant parcels would also need deeds, so that it's clear in the future that triangle in this piece is actually merged into the other parcel and not creating a separate piece.
Fun.
No, I was going to say that exactly what the county's procedure is when it receives a approved lot line adjustment for recordation. I am, in all honesty, not familiar with what the county does with that, but the types of questions or concerns that arise from, as you described, Carrie, are I think some of the concerns that out there for just the conveyance of the adjusted piece, if you will. Somehow goofy things happening and somehow creating an individual parcel should things fall through the cracks. So I think that's one of the concerns that I've experienced from the past in wanting to get the revised descriptions submitted.
Right, and I think the other thing, and it's probably more for the protection of the Mitchell or the new property is, and I'm sorry, can I ask, I see Bill and Trish Spence, are you the new owners of the Mitchell parcel? No, okay. They're not,
No,
are they here today,
we're not.
Fred, or are they?
Yeah, I'm right here.
We're-
I own the lot that I granted the Mitchells request to actually do the lot line adjustment. I offered them easements, and they preferred the more complicated path.
Right, and it's actually, I realize it's more complicated, Bob, but in the future, for future property owners
No, I
and
understand.
for zoning, it's actually clearer and less complicated.
Yeah.
Okay. And Fred, are you representing the sole representative of the parcel, the Mitchell's parcel at this meeting?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Okay, so that's what I wanted to know. So, Bill and Trish, did you have a clarification? Because we'll get to public comments after we get done with the questions.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So, so the other concern that I have, Fred, in terms of, and this is not necessarily the city's role, however, it is something that most property owners don't know, is that a title company, once a parcel has been adjusted, will generally want to issue or need to issue a new title insurance for that parcel to fully be insured in terms of the title and then moving forward. And so that's kind of the other concern I have. The way I've seen it done in the past, the new parcel is, we always advise I've always advised the applicant that they would need to talk to their title company in terms of any new insurance to make sure that everything is correct and in order for any future owners. And that way there is, as Fred, you're saying, there is no cloud on the title, or there is at least the title companies have cleared it. And Fred, do you have any further information in response to those 2 points for our consideration?
Maybe just a little, in the sense that item 4 on the conditions of approval states that the legal description contain this paragraph at the bottom that talks about this lot line adjustment being affected. And the purpose of it is to combine the triangle piece with the piece that it's being granted to. And so that then lets the assessor know that, yes, indeed, this triangle piece is not a separate piece that's going to stay there in limbo. It is going to get assessed with the other parcel, because this note in the bottom of condition number 4 pretty much, demands that be so. And usually when a lot line adjustment occurs, the title company prepares the deeds, and they then make sure that everything is copacetic and all, that the city approvals are at hand, and that the legal description the surveyor is prepared is adequate. And then that deed that gets drawn up between Dvorak and Mitchell, then that deed again gets executed and gets recorded. And that affects the change of that triangle going from Dvorak's side to Mitchell's side. And so I think what it is that then finishes the process. And I've yet to see where a title company then, say a week later or 2 weeks later, is called on to reissue title insurance in any way. They've already insured title to the property. And then in the future, when that resultant piece or whatever, either side ever gets transferred, they then issue title based on what the title is at that time. Because there could be other things that happen in the intervening 2 or 3 years, such as other deeds of trust being put of record, easements being created, and these other kinds of things. So they don't, in my understanding, they don't issue like new title policies each and every time a thing that would affect title goes into the record. They just kind of wait until the transfer from one person to another. And at that time, usually title policies are requested. Although if it's a cash purchase with wealthy buyers, they may not even bother with title insurance. But anyway, we can do what's being requested here. I mean, these resultant descriptions are not a real big deal. But part of the issue is when the request is to provide resultant legal descriptions with closures, the closures part of that become a little bit of a problem because surveyors can't really do closures unless they're surveying something. And when these resultant descriptions get prepared, they're kind of prepared from the record. And so what happens is part of the legal description goes meets and bounds around the perimeter of the original parcel. But when it gets to where the triangle piece is being adjusted away, then the legal description becomes a survey description and has bearings and distances going along the edge of that parcel that got adjusted. I might be getting a little bit complicated here, but I just want to say that, yes, we can prepare a legal description, but it won't mathematically close because that resultant piece, the rest of the property, be it 1 acre, 2 acres, or 100 acres, that's not necessarily being surveyed. So I guess with this condition and the things that are being suggested, yes, we can go ahead and prepare resultant descriptions of both the Dvorak property and the Mitchell property. And yes, we can prepare a plat, like an exhibit that shows, oh, by the way, here's the new shape of these once this adjustment gets done. And of course, that grant that does that is going to be from Mitchell to Mitchell and from Dvorak to Dvorak, which really is kind of odd because you have the grantee grantor being the same person. But then there's a statement that says this deed's being recorded to kind of visually show what these properties now look like. But as far as a real true effect in title, they're kind of, well, they're subservient and then they don't control anything. So if we just dropped out the part where you needed closures on the resultant parcels, that'd be pretty cool.
Okay, so this is, John, actually, do you have both the suggested and the original condition of approval? Can you bring that up?
I have the original one, and then I can also bring up the suggested as well.
Okay, that'd be great. And Mario, while he's doing that, you know, I'm not a surveyor, I'm a planning director, and so I deal with a lot of new applicants who have have a piece of land they want to do something with. So what our interest in the planning department is generally to make sure that things meet the setbacks, which in this case the Mitchells found that their ADU did not meet the setbacks. They're doing the lot line adjustment with Mr. Dvorak to adjust that so the ADU does meet the setbacks. That was actually just an error in their understanding of the original lot line. And so our interest in the planning department is usually that there's a known, you know, setback and a known lot size and shape. In terms of the request for the closure calculations, that doesn't bother me to drop that, but Mario, I want to get your perspective as the engineer on this. All right, I see so this is the original, John?
Yeah, so the original is up here. And then number
And then you have the suggested below.
Yep.
Applicant shall also submit a draft deed along with a plat and. So, and Fred, it sounded like you might have an additional, John, can you just move that up underneath 3 for now so we can see them right next to each other? So Fred, item 6, I'll still notes closure calculations. Do you have a suggested revision given our discussion or different, our questions and concerns?
Carrie, are you asking me?
Either you
Or
or Fred.
I'm sorry, say what?
Either you or Fred.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because
Yeah,
it does
okay.
say the closure calculation. So go ahead, Mario.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, to your question, as I understood it, that again, you gave the background as a planner, et cetera, not concerned with closure calcs. I get that. And I'm sorry, I answered you, but I was muted. Anyway, the purpose of the closure calcs is primarily to ensure, mathematical accuracy of the portion of land being the subject matter. In this case, the triangular piece, which I believe Fred has provided meets and bounds on that, and I believe I've seen the closures on that. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, Fred, but I thought it was a little while ago that I looked at it. But in any case, I think satisfying that component, it still needs to assure mathematical accuracy of the component being conveyed. But separate and apart from that, as the municipal code as written, which I'm more and more inclined to hold to that kind of language. I could share that language if you would like. I have that available here. Calls for the applicant to submit a deeds for the transfer of a revised deed for transfer of property. In other examples, how I have received those in the past, from my experience, has been the original descriptions, which I think are the issues of importance, the records that we don't want to mess with, and not asking the surveyor to go back and confirm those, recreate a survey and confirm those, but rather referencing those original descriptions, both in the grantor and grantee lots, with the added verbiage in there in the case of the grantor, accepting therefrom the portion that is the transfer piece. That is the one that has the closure calculations, and basically you're just saying, here's the original lot minus the adjusted piece. And for the grantee lot, something similar, the former legal description together with, and then we're bringing in the newly adjusted piece. And in this way, it's holistic in either case, grantee, grantor. So that's a suggestion I would throw out there. I don't know if anybody has an issue with that, but it's kind of I think meeting us halfway there, providing a revised deed per the municipal code, and it's clearly showing the intent of what the whole purpose is, together with the disclaimer that's added on the deeds. So that's where I land on the question of closure counts. They're important for the purpose of the piece being conveyed, of the adjustment piece.
Yes, I
Thanks,
would
Mario.
agree.
You agree with that? Okay, thank you. And that then in my more simplistic non-surveyor mind, it would be the final legal description, so to speak, that would be recorded would be the original lot minus this piece for one deed, and the original lot plus that piece for the other legal, without having to do a full new survey of the entire new boundary of each of the parcels. Is that what we're trying to avoid, Fred? Just because you're not necessarily surveying the entire other sides of the lot?
Well, that's what I'm suggesting, essentially doing, and hopefully allaying concerns from the surveyor, but yet at the same time satisfying the the language in the municipal code.
Thank you. That was it for my question. Steve and Mario, do you have any questions before we open up for public comment?
I have
Okay,
nothing
so
further.
okay, great. And so at this time, Bill and Trish, Spence, you can go ahead with your public comment. We usually limit to 3 minutes.
So-
it sounds like we can do that.
Here's a picture more or less of what's going on here. The original property we're talking about was this large piece of property that was subdivided sometime in the past into these two parcels. This is the Mitchell's whole parcel. This is the little triangle we're talking about. So we're circled here, not a triangle. And then here's the Dvorak property, and here's my property. Everybody clear so far? Okay.
Yes.
Page. So the survey was done, and is this right side up or upside down?
There you go. That's the same orientation.
Right side up.
That one.
So
Yep.
the survey was done, and the little triangle pieces up here. But what
Mhm.
happened is that the survey found that this, what we thought was our property line here, was off by about a foot. And so this was also off by a foot. And the property line at the back is also off. So the problem that it opened a can of worms, it really did. Because originally that little triangle thing would have been okay until the survey was done, because it moved property lines all over the place. So at some point in the future, I'm going to come back and I'm going to want some adjustments here. And I'm going to want to grant deed this little piece here to my neighbors. I'm going to ask, and Bob has already agreed that he would grant deed this to me. So we're okay, but just be aware at some point, either me or my unfortunate descendants will be back to talk to you. It's truly a mess. And Mr. Phelps, I don't dislike you, but my recommendation to anybody in the future is if you're thinking of getting your property surveyed, don't. Let sleeping dogs lie, as they say. But I will be back. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill, for your public comment.
And I think, let me, no, I think.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Bob.
Mario's approach, that's pretty elegant, and it might help us, in the future, Bill. As far as, I think that makes sense as far as just adding a portion to one title description and subtracting that same portion from the other.
Right.
That works well.
Okay. Trish, did you have any public comments?
Not really. I left the room for a few minutes. I missed most of it. So, oh, well.
Your husband explained the survey dynamics to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry about the survey. I'm the one that kind of
Created this.
started this, but it was, well, I won't go into it. It was for good reason.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It was for
All right.
good, but once again, good intentions are the road to hell, isn't that?
Well, yeah, in some cases, I guess.
All
It's
right,
just
so I'm gonna.
surprising to find out that the property lines are so different from what you thought they were. It probably not in a new development, but downtown, probably yes.
Mhm.
Correct. Okay, so I'm going to close public comment then
Okay.
and bring it back to the Environmental Review Committee for discussion. And just Mr. and Ms. Spence, just to note, yes, you're correct. Older towns certainly have a lot of this. Usually it's when development is happening that this type of thing gets identified. And so, correcting lot lines and things like that is actually a par for the course, and Sebastopol actually does far less of them than I'm used to. We, as towns get developed and people are, wanting to do like the accessory dwelling units closer to which can be closer to property lines, we are required to, accessory dwelling units can now be 4 feet from both the side and rear property line. And so we are going to be requiring more surveys to make sure, in this case, the Mitchell's accessory dwelling unit, they thought they knew the property line. And it's I think it was supposed to be like a 9-foot. John, what was the setback supposed to be for this?
I believe it was 8 or 9 feet.
Correct, okay.
And
So 8 or
more or less.
9 feet. If this had been 4 feet and whatnot, it would have actually and been off by that much. The ADU unit itself would be on the adjoining property. And so obviously from a building perspective, that is not an acceptable thing. So we will be doing more, requiring more surveys, which yes, may result in more of these. Oh, this is actually over here and this is actually over there. It's pretty standard procedure to correct them over time as surveyor instruments get more accurate. So I would be happy to get additional corrections in the queue so that those things can happen. It does not appear though that this particular lot line adjustment would have a negative impact to you. It's more the overall, oops, the property lines aren't where we thought they were. Mario and Steve, do you have any thoughts about the application?
I'll chime in. Steve, unless you want to, I've been chatting quite a bit. Do you want to go up first?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, to the Spence's comments, I did want to add that I heard the comment, "Let sleeping dogs lie," and it sounds like leave the past in the past, and certainly, with development, looking to the future, you don't have those same types of issues. Well, I can tell you the development and so forth will also one day be in the past. And it is why, and I know developers and their surveyors don't like this, cities, we impose conditions like all new lot corners will be monumented with a corner pipe. And the resistance is, come on, this is a burden, unnecessary expense. It's just pretty clear where everything is and so forth and so on. We have a fence line here and what have you. And they're definitely speaking in the current, brand new fences, brand new lines. And what we got to look at is one day it will be in the past. One day a fence will fall down. One day something will happen. And there we're going to be, as they say, deja vu all over again, doing that same thing that we, from correcting the past mistake. So, there's rationale for requirements and conditions from the city. It seems a little overburdensome sometimes and just bureaucratic, but there's purpose.
And
trying to save headaches.
Mr. Lunderos, I would completely concur with
Yes.
that. When I did my accessory dwelling unit here in Sebastopol, I was required to identify the property lines. Well, one of the corners, and this was a 1983 subdivision, so all of the corners supposedly were marked, but one of them was put in a tree. Instead of in the ground with an offset as recorded. And so obviously that tree has grown, and it's actually probably grown around the marker because I couldn't find it. And so we had to set a new corner marker that has an offset, so that it was done appropriately. And that, that's just the nature of these things. And but I absolutely agree with you. And fences, that's why I'm always telling people, fences are not property lines. And I do have another applicant right now that's dealing with a similar thing where the retaining wall got built on a neighbor's property and they're doing a lot line adjustment. In that case, they worked it out through attorneys. And in this case, no offense, Fred, but surveyors are usually a little bit cheaper than once attorneys get involved. So, okay, with that, Steve, did you have some comments?
Nope, I agree with both of you though, and especially in an older town like this, the real difficult problem for surveyors is there's just not a lot of start points in the city. So getting those lines surveyed could be very, very expensive because they may have to start a couple miles away from where they end up. So, yep, and it's a problem everywhere in town.
Okay, so with that, and Mario, since you are the more technical expert on the surveying aspect of this, can I ask what your thoughts were on modifying or not modifying the conditions of approval?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fine, Carrie. I did early suggest that I'm open to a modification. And John, I'm going to take the screen if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, good. Looking for my, there we go. So, oh, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and in red, I have a proposed revision, and this is language taken directly from the municipal code. In fact, I'll click here, you'll see that's the highlighted portion. This is out of the municipal code. I've just taken sections out of there. And so my offering here is to replace condition number 3 with this proposed language. The applicant shall submit to the city engineer for review and approval revised deeds for transfer of the property, and thereafter shall record documents, et cetera, et cetera. And that's directly from the municipal code. I believe Fred, and I'll just ask the question real briefly to Fred. I think you have submitted your meets and bounds on this in the application material. I didn't go back to review, but it seems like I had chased this around from what you had submitted. Am I correct in that, or is that still something you owe me?
Let's see. No, we haven't submitted the meets and bounds as
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I confused with other projects, but that's fine. So I'll still be needing to get that. Then what we may want to do is just direct the existing language concerning closure calculations to just the conveyed piece.
Yes.
Yeah. So I can come up with something in here on this. Let's see. See, I don't need to see deeds showing the 2 properties in the adjusted state. Like I said, this former language, and I'm not liking it the more and more I read it. But that submittal, so submit for the adjusted portion. Submit the meets and bounds and closure calculations for the adjusted portion, and then once that is approved, after my review, then we can continue on with the approved revised deeds for the transfer. That's the originals with the pluses and minuses. That makes sense? Yeah. So if it would please this committee and the applicant, I can work with Fred, if you don't mind, on the exact language that satisfies us on that, for getting information on that to include the calcs, and I think it'll serve well going forward with our future lot line adjustment applications. Similar language.
So as this is a public hearing, we do need to settle on what the revised condition would be. However, I'm happy to have that be a little flexible in terms of what you need, to the satisfaction of the city engineer. And then I think it would be great if you and Fred, as applicant surveyor who does, typical applicant surveyor, work through some better revised language for future applications. I think that would certainly benefit the city.
Okay.
So if we have a revision here to replace the original condition 3 that works for you, to get us on that path, I think that would be fine.
Okay.
I know it's always fun to try to figure out conditions of approval in a meeting, but take your time if you need, and we can take a quick break if you need.
I'm just gonna talk out loud here as I'm thinking. I want to say submit the legal descriptions and closure calculations. Type in under pressure here for the
Do you call that
the adjusted portion?
Partial, the adjusted portion? What's
the
the correct
adjusted
name?
portion? Let's use that word, adjusted portion. For review, I already got that up there. This portion. And upon approval, submit to the city revised deeds or transfer. Is that getting a reading on that? What do we think, folks? Fred,
Right.
want to weigh in on that?
The applicant, I'm just going to read it so that
Yeah.
it always helps me. The applicant shall submit to the city engineer for review and approval, legal description and closure calculations for the adjusted portion, and probably put a period after that.
Yeah.
Upon approval, submit to the city engineer revised deeds. The applicant would submit to the engineer revised deeds for transfer of the property, and thereafter shall record the documents and submit copies of the recorded documents to the planning department. And so this is saying the applicant first submits the legal description and closure calcs for the adjusted portion, the portion being transferred.
Yeah.
And upon approval of that, this legal description and closure calculations, then submits to the city engineer the two revised deeds that would be recorded, and those are the deed plus and the deed minus, I'll call it. And thereafter record those. Can we say record the revised deeds?
Yeah.
That way it's clear which documents.
Yeah, so we're just taking that copy and we're going to, okay. And submit copies of the recorded documents to the planning department. And planning department, that's per the code, so.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And that's how we close out our lot line adjustment file. And if engineering wants to know that that has been recorded, we're happy to do that. Okay, Mario, do you mind if I make a motion?
I would love it, yeah.
Okay, because I'm just gonna, this is my wordsmithing. I'm gonna change one thing so that it's, because I think this would be a great moving forward. So I'm going to move that the Environmental Review Committee approve the proposed lot line adjustment between, what are the two addresses, John?
7451 and 7493.
Huntley Street, with the following amendment to replacement for condition number 3 to read: the applicant shall submit to the city engineer legal descriptions and closure calculations for the adjusted portion for city engineer's review and approval. Upon approval, the applicant shall submit to the city engineer revised deeds for transfer of the property, and thereafter shall record the revised deeds and submit copies of the recorded documents to the planning department. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Steve. And we'll do a roll vote. John, can you take the vote?
Mario,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and Carrie.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 3 yeses with 2 absents. So the motion passes.
Thank you, John. And we are recording this, Mario, so John will get the final conditions of approval out to the applicant. That motion has passed, and that concludes our regular agenda for today. There is I believe there's a 7-day appeal period, after which the approval becomes final. If you are interested in an appeal, please contact John at the planning department for more information on that. However, I believe that, sorry, let me get back to our agenda. That is it for our meeting, and I will go ahead and adjourn.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.